Hian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
The theme of this year's Asian Investment Conference is Disruption Accelerated. What are the biggest disruptions facing ASEAN's digital technology sector over the next few years?
Well, we've experienced significant disruption through COVID, but this disruption, I feel, has just been a multi-year trend. We as venture capitalists love disruption because that's what the change happens, and that's how we do our business. That's how we grow new ideas and change the world. In terms of disruption, I would pick, of course, video conferencing in the ability to connect socially, but not in person. But I would go further. I think over the past 12 months, certainly for us, we've seen the rise of online media in Southeast Asia. We have one portfolio company called Kumu in the Philippines that's connecting the 100 million Filipinos, not just socially. They don't have to be physically present, and they are spending a lot of time, and they are pioneering a new way of connecting, both as a digital as well as a physical and quasi-social way of doing things.
From healthcare to finance to food, digital technology is transforming every industry. Which sectors are you most excited about and why?
We've been excited with some of the what we call tertiary layers of the disruption in Southeast Asia. And what I mean by that is that over the past 8 years when we've been operating, we've seen a lot of the infrastructure layer built out. So we've seen logistics, we've seen e-commerce, we've just seen mobile phone penetration rise, as well as 4G penetration, now 5G penetration rise throughout Southeast Asia. So what we're excited now are the tertiary services, fintech, health tech. We've got HelloDoc, great services business, online media, of course, Kumu, and now increasingly we also have GoPlay, which is the spin-out of Gojek. These are very, very transformative technologies. In addition, we've seen in the last 12 to 24 months, the rise of agri-tech. I think logistics as well as food supply is very key for disruption. And finally, last but not least, we're seeing the rise of B2B services for SMEs in Southeast Asia really take off.
The potential of ASEAN's digital economy is well recognized, but it faces a number of obstacles, including a lack of infrastructure and fragmentation. To achieve its promises, what are the key challenges ASEAN's digital economy needs to overcome, and what solutions do you propose?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, the so-called infrastructure issue is rapidly being solved. And we'll see in the next 2 to 3 years, significant increases in the penetration of digital payments, logistics capabilities, as well as user acceptance and happiness in using the mobile phone as a primary way of getting services and products. So I think the infrastructure layer is definitely being solved at this point of time. However, we've seen over the past 8 years, one thing's very consistent. Southeast Asia is a very fragmented region. And while the promise holds true that 600 million people, there's so many different countries. And so we have to address that head on. Certainly for us as a venture capital firm, we've decided to actually invest very heavily in a network of 25 people covering 5 countries. I think we speak about 7 different languages. And our positioning is that we're there on the ground for our founders to really help execute every single one of these business ideas in the heterogeneous regions in the different countries. So that's how we've addressed this challenge.
ASEAN is home to a growing number of unicorns. What potential do you see for these companies to become global success stories?
Yeah, we've been fortunate enough to be right at the early stage of one of the more infamous unicorns, now probably a decacorn called Gojek. And the reality is that we don't necessarily think that a company like Gojek needs to be a global company. Sure, there are unicorns or billion-dollar companies where the business model requires them to be global. But I like to use the word digital decolonization. We're seeing in India, in China, in Latin America, and increasingly in Southeast Asia, where people build regional businesses to address in a much more granular level some of the challenges of that region. And those become very, very big businesses. So I think they'll be home to unicorns. They just don't necessarily have to be global.
Very interesting perspective. So the last question of today's interview, what leadership lessons have you learned during the pandemic?
I was taking the time to actually look where we were last year. I was reading and listening to some of the things I talked, and it turns out that what I was saying was that you have to be front foot forward. You really have to take the initiative to engage with your portfolio companies and reach out to them before they reach out to you and try and solve the problem. But I was also saying that it always looks dark at first, but you'll see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I was quite optimistic 12 months ago that the human ingenuity and our spirit as a species will prevail. And I think we always kept that mantra. We've always kept optimistic, and that was the way we led our portfolio companies to where we are today.
Thank you so much, Hian, for taking the time to join us.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And thank you for inviting me to the Credit Suisse conference as well.